guys, and welcome to episode 5 of Ikebukuro Skate Park. I know I said I initially wasn't going to do another release. I have decided to continue it, but it will be the video that if I am really tired or things get messed up, I will be pushing it to a different day. So I'm doing it because I love to do it, but it's not because I'm continuing it because of the amount of downvoters. The last episode did behave a little bit better, but at the same time, it's not great. This week's episode was Dragon Tears. Disclaimer right here, I don't understand enough about the situations that the anime is obviously picking up on. I don't know the situations enough. I do understand that China has a problem with its poverty, and I know that. Today, I'm just going to essentially just review the story that we've been given, not here to pass any judgments or opinions, because it's not my role. I don't have that position to do anything and say anything on that in that regards. Also, quickly, I have been very busy. I have set up a Discord channel. If you guys would like to come across and join, it is very new, and also you'll have to bear in mind that I have literally landed into the Discord servers not knowing anything. I have had the help of a seasoned Discord creator moderator to help me kind of set it all up. It is the stepping stones of what I overall want to create with Clockwork Noodles on YouTube, and that is to have a community where we talk about airing animes, anything cosplay related, anything going on recently, so we can discuss the videos as well. It is going to grow, so you'll have to, if you come across now, just bear with things being everything's in its baby stages, everything's infantile stage, and we're going to nurture it and create something amazing. At the moment, it's broken down into a lot of cat memes and things, so that is cool. Today, I'm going to discuss the episode with Dragon Tears and just walk through back into the world of Ikebukuro Skate Park and definitely discuss the most MVP character for this episode. It's our situation. Let's talk about Makoto. So we see Makoto at work with his mother. He's cleaning parmesans, I think. They're the little orange fruits. I've never had one, but I do see them mentioned quite a bit in animes. I would be curious to try one. I'm not quite sure what it would taste like, so if any of you guys have tried one, if you had to describe what kind of fruit it tastes like, let me know in the comments. Is it similar to anything we can get here in the West, essentially? So I did recently take a trip to Madeira where there was a lot of new fruits I'd never even seen before. We find out that there is a new movement on the streets, and it is the Chinatown Association. Makoto's mum says there's like 250 Chinese sellers who are getting together. Makoto's mum is angry because they won't join the Shopkeeper Association. So she says, I am against the Chinatown Association. I am going to mention right here, Makoto's mum is the MVP of this episode. There is a lot going on and the story is deep. I've got a few points where I want to raise them, but initially I don't have too much to react to because it's really difficult to comment on problems like this because these are real world problems, but I don't know enough about these situations can't really talk about them to the degree I would normally with like some of these animes where we just talk about a plot, but this plot is dealing with something quite heavy. Makoto meets Lin, turns out to be the Chinese technical intern advisor for some of the people who come across to work in Japan. He speaks really good Japanese, and that's what Makoto credits him for. I do like the fact that King recommends Makoto as somebody who understands the underworld, but he acts for justice and not money. If you guys have been watching my other videos, I've said a few times that it's the almost illegal version of Millionaire Detective, which aired last season, where Makoto is very similar to Haru, where he is a justice for good, and he reminds me of that. So Makoto is mainly for justice. He doesn't act for money or any selfish gains, which is why he's my favourite character. Makoto is my favourite character of this series. A girl has gone missing and her name is Go. I haven't watched enough Chinese dramas or anything to understand how the language acts. So I know that Go is definitely not the name. I'm giving her more of a Japanese name to there. I definitely will butcher the name, so I'm going to call her Go for now. I think it's better if I stick with one wrong answer than dance around trying to get the correct answer and mashing it up even more in the process. he gives him a week deadline because the Ministry of Health, Labour, Welfare is due to inspect this factory, the sewing factory that Go works from. And he says if she's not there, her peers are all going to be deported back to their own country, even though it's just Go who's gone missing. And it's not just a few people we're dealing with. And I was quite shocked to find out it's 250 people who would be forced to go back to China if Go doesn't show up. And this is when we learn about the Donglong organization. The only reason I'm going to bring this up, if you remember what I said in episode 1, I said that this anime may be episodic. So every episode would deal with a different situation, a different scenario. I think there is an underlying plot which is growing within these. Within this episode especially, there is that underlying plot rears its head. Very indirectly, it's there, but we start to see it mentioned and that plot starts to grow. So this episode, even though I can't really react much to what is going on, and it's a very hard episode to summarize or even review, but there are some very important key bits of information that come out of this episode alone. We cut to our favourite place for ramen, where we get some soy sauce ramen. I am so hungry right now. I've had a very rough 4 days, so you're going to have to forgive me if I sound absolutely exhausted. I am. I've had a rough 4 days, and obviously my country has gone back into lockdown, so I had to push things forward to get them sorted before lockdown happened. So I have basically been working back to back, and I released Noodles last night and I was up working on that till like 1 a.m. So I'm up again really early trying to get this recorded. I'm going to try editing as much as I can because I have work very soon. I've got to head off to work, trying to get Clockwork Dandy Noodles set up. I'm very nervous and anxious that the channel isn't going to work, but I want it to. I really want it to become a place where we can all chat about these things. So we get a bit more information about China's poverty situation. There are just some areas, despite as much aid as they can, that are just really poor. They have a poor income, they have a poor lifestyle. The money they get is awful. People want to learn Japanese to go and work in Japan just because they get a chance to do 3 years of work and actually earn the wage that they would get for their entire lives back in China because of like how bad the situation is over there. And the work they do isn't great either, so it's hard, it's often dangerous, but it's enough to give them money to try and actually support their families. Well, we get interrupted by some youths coming in to try and extort protection money from our boys, and we know that the ramen place is owned by some G-boys, where these guys go around breaking some windows, kicking down some stools, and they're trying to extort money from the owners. And we find out that they are members of Donglong. I really wasn't expecting Ling to just bust out some kung fu, where he's the one who actually goes forward and confronts these guys, and he beats up one of them in self-defense, and the guys end up leaving. I wasn't expecting it because obviously we saw last episode Makoto was able to stand up for himself, so I was like, oh, Makoto's probably going to handle this, or maybe the G-boys will handle it. But I wasn't expecting Lin to come forward and go, hey, look what I can do. We see King arrive. We didn't see King last episode, so nice to see him come back and arrive back on the scene. We get some information now on Donglong that these guys are using the Chinatown demonstration as a front. So the Chinese shopkeepers are just being manipulated into creating this front. Something more important is going on behind the scenes. This is probably the most important thing for the episode, that the Japanese organisation backing Donglong has links to Kansai. Episode 1. Makoto made a passing comment when it comes to busting the drug dealers, that one of them had a Kansai accent. This is linking back into the underlying plot that is going on, and I think it's going to be very important later on. At this point in this episode, it doesn't come back again, but it's a simple reminder something bigger is going on behind the scenes. There's a bigger bad going on behind the scenes, and I think this is at some point is going to rear its head, and that's going to be the main plot, the main goal, the end game, if anything, is going to be the big, who is this organisation? You know, what is their ultimate goal? So what are they gaining from backing Donglong? We see that Donglong makes money from people extorting people. So the extortion money would make Donglong some cash. But we know that the Kansai organisation would also make a profit. But I can't imagine they're making that much just off the backs of extortion money. It's going to be interesting to hopefully get some information when these guys finally appear and we finally work out what's going on. This episode, if anything, is very important because it draws us back to know that there is an underlying plot going on. There is something more going on right now. King warns Makoto to be careful when he's looking for the trainee, and then he just goes, "Get out!" And Makoto's like, "You can at least say see ya." I love it. It's just how blunt he's like, "Just get out, go, shoot, bye." So Makoto and Lin start to investigate the sex industry as they have a feeling that is probably where Go has gone. A man with a dragon tattoo stops them in a car and tells them to get in, where they need to be blindfolded to head to their destination. I think I mentioned in episode 1 whether the tattoos were going to come and play a role. In this episode, they do. The guy has a dragon tattoo on his wrist, which means he's a member of Donglong. It's just interesting because I think I said episode 1 because the aesthetic for this anime itself is the graffiti, is that kind of urban gangster kind of vibes to the anime, but there's also a lot of references to things like tattoos. So I did say I wonder if tattoos are going to play a role, whether they might play a role with this underlying plot going on. Who knows? Hopefully we do see it come back, but it's just very interesting to see it finally started to play a role that this guy has got a tattoo, and it's how Lin actually works out that he's working for Donglong. We meet, and yes, I'm going to get it wrong. I think his name is like, it reads Yang Feng, but I'm pretty sure it's like Yofu-san or something, or I think that's how they pronounce it. He is the representative. Ling introduces himself and he says we must be humble and see where things go, where we find out that the representative understands Japanese. He's like, I just understand exactly what you just said. So there's no sneaking around this guy. He knows exactly what is going on and he can understand their language. So they can't really get away with speaking between themselves in Japanese here. We find out that Lin hasn't been 100% truthful with Makoto. Here we find out that he is the advisor for the same province that the girl is missing from. Makoto says, we're only here for one thing. We just want Go to come back. Otherwise, and I feel like he goes in to try threaten this guy. I don't think, it's like, Makoto, I think you might want to hold your horses here. We find out recently that the foreign law has recently been revised. So the law that trainees get kicked out if one of them goes missing has been changed. However, the ministry is angry for the poor conditions that they're working in. So the new law is ineffective in a sense. This is very all confusing, and this is roughly what I've kind of got from it. And yes, I probably have missed out a few details, and I feel like I haven't quite got the grip on this episode like I have with the other ones. Ling essentially did lie, but it's more they're trying to protest against the poor conditions that they're working in. So he's lied in his best interest in a sense. The representative says that he doesn't want to send a countryman back to that difficult, dirty labour camp. So he sees the places that these guys are working in as a labour camp, where he kind of openly admits that he does know where she is. Makoto, again making this guy angry, interrupts the guy, and that's when he threatens him. He says, I can't guarantee that you're going to survive, where he gives him a death threat. It's a very confusing interchange, and I think I get the gist of it. When they finally get home to the fruit stall, he wants the truth. He asks Lin for the truth because he hasn't been 100% truthful, and he even says, can I trust you? Is that true about the labour camp? Obviously, I couldn't tell you the truth because the Japanese know nothing of the hellish poverty that they're going through. He kind of told him what he needed to know, didn't give him the full information just because he believed that Makoto wouldn't understand. To be fair, he doesn't. It's actually Makoto's mum, the MVP of this episode, who comes in and gets the anime moving. Calls him Lin-chan. I love the fact she calls him Lin-chan. And she has a go at Makoto and says, you have to go and find Go, where Lin-chan worked really hard to become an advisor. And she's really happy. She's like, you can call me mother, where he thanks her and says, I actually already have a Japanese mother, which is the start of Lin-chan's big scheme. He was adopted by a Japanese woman, so he is essentially considered a Japanese citizen. As he was working in one of the factories, he got close to an old woman who decided to adopt him. After this, we see that Makoto's mum, the MVP of our episode, is doting on Lin, and then she just yells at her own son. She's like, go and find you Go. I love her. I do think she's a great character, and it's nice to see her coming back to play a bit more of a role, where we get a bit of a sequence where the guys go and investigate the sex industry, and Lin finally gets a call from Yang, and I was like, wait, this can't be the same guy who just yelled at them and gave a death threat to Makoto, but it does turn out it is. We find out that Go is working for a host club at the China Doll. He has agreed to release her, and Lin is scary. The power that Lin has is terrifying. He asks the superiors above Ling to put pressure on him to release her, and he says, I wanted to avoid that route because it means I now owe China a favour. So they go ahead and say, we now need to go and persuade her to leave, And because you're a third party and you're not even in this, that is going to be the role that you can play. That we need Makoto to persuade her to leave the job at the hostess club and go back for the sake of her peers. And Go has dyed her hair, and I won't lie, the new hair colour really suits her. I really like the new hair colour. And we find out that she can't go back. She really needs some money. That her little brother had sent her a letter telling her that her father's kidney disease has gotten worse and they need money because he needs a transplant. But Makoto's like, if you don't go back, 250 of your trainees will be deported if you don't return. He says you've got one day to figure it out and work it out. And it's a really difficult situation. It's very bittersweet. We want her to make money for her father, but at the same time she's doing it illegally, and at the same time with her taking that route, 250 people who are also trying to make money for their own families and try and make a better living are also at risk of being deported, even though I thought they said that that was no longer the rules. Again, I didn't fully get the gist on that. Go ends up staying with Makoto's mum, where Lin comes round to bring her some sweets, which is great. I love it. You find out that Go has decided to go back to Ibaraki. On their last day, Makoto is going to be tour guiding her around Tokyo because she hasn't seen Tokyo and is going to spend some time with her. She has taken a decision that she can't cause trouble for other people. It's the moral decision on this one. I think obviously it's that annoying trolley decision where do you hit like one person you know or 250 people you don't know? She's taken the moral decision, but at the same time it feels bitter because obviously it feels like she's having to let her father go. Makoto's mother is very upset because obviously she's been talking to Go and they're going to be throwing a party for her tonight. Well, we get a really nice bit now where we see the Tokyo tour, Makoto acting like a guide, and we get to meet the Red Angels and we get some information on Koichi that he lived in Chicago with the ballet troupe, which explains the dancing and the music choice from episode... Did he appear in episode 3? I think he was in episode 3. We finally get a bit of information from that. It's been a while since we've seen the Red Angels, quite nice. And they're at a cat park. Anybody who is watching, and if you are living in Tokyo area, or where is this cat park? Is it a thing? Is this cat park a place that you can go to? Because I want to go. I haven't been to Japan and it's like on my to-do list eventually, but I want to make sure I put that on the list for sure. We get the moving bit now where Go is marveling. They must be at the top of like Tokyo Tower or something where they're overlooking the sights and there's a beautiful sunset going on. It's a very beautiful scene. Go is marveling at Japan and like if you can get sick you go to hospital. It made me thankful as well for the fact that we in the UK have got the NHS. I have friends in the US and I know how difficult it is for them to raise money. If they get sick, they have to raise the money for just the stuff that we get over here on the NHS. It does make me very thankful for that. She gets upset and she's like, well, my father's situation is bad, but I think he will agree with the choice I've made because we also need money for my brother's and my sister's education. I think so too, that her father would probably want to see his children have their futures secured. So I think even if she hadn't been adopted, I think he wouldn't have been angry at Go. There's no way he could have been angry at her for the decision she's made because he as well, I believe, would have wanted to put his children's futures ahead. He would want to make sure there's money for them as well. We catch our farewell party where Lin becomes the schemer, or we find out he has schemed. He does say that I didn't initially start with the idea of doing it, but he ended up going down that route where him mentioning that he was adopted actually pushed Makoto's mother. Makoto's mother has agreed to adopt Go. And essentially Go's situation was a problem because of her legal status. So she couldn't stay and make money because she wasn't a resident of Japan. She essentially had to go back after the 3 years of working there, where she says if she was a citizen of Japan, there would be no issues. So she has decided to take it upon herself. And this is an MVP move. It is not a easy decision. Obviously, she's got to take into account the financials behind it. Obviously, she does say that I think she's going to be a fine worker. So Go would probably be able to help her around the house as well. You can't just let your father die. And that's why I said it felt very bittersweet initially, where she decides to go back and for the sake of her 250 peers, because at that point it was a moral choice. The most amount of people who would benefit from a choice. So her father may not benefit from her going back and staying for the sake of her 250 peers, but 250 people would now be allowed to stay, make money, and it benefits the majority. But now we see her being able to make the decision as well to fit both parties. Her being adopted allows her to make more money in Japan because obviously the wages are higher, send it back and help her father, and also hopefully help her siblings at the same time. So it's a win-win situation. But we do have to ultimate respect to Makoto's mum for making this decision. This is not an easy decision to make, and it's a lifetime decision which sticks. It's a commitment. It really is a commitment where Go agrees, and it's a really emotional ending where we see her crying. Makoto gains a sister as well. The end sequence looking over the whole Ikebukuro Westgate Park at nighttime scene with Makoto going, I really didn't realise how blessed I was. So obviously I was growing up here. Japan has got its problems, but I am blessed. I think it's a nice little kind of moral of the story that is that there's always somebody who is worse than yourself, that we need to see the positives in our own situation, that things might seem bad. There will be people who are worse off than yourself, but you need to see the positives and appreciate what good things you do have. And it is a really nice moral of the story. It's a very difficult, this is probably going to be like my worst review episode ever, which doesn't help the situation of the series being my most downvoted series on the channel. I had to come back to a very difficult episode. The ending has, of course, returned back to normal. There's no more crying Makoto. That is the episode essentially wrapped up. I did a very poor job, I think, so I will apologise. The main key points here is the fact that we've got this Kansai group. We've got this Kansai group rearing its head again. So this is definitely the most important takeaway from the episode. Takeaway again, we've got some information on Makoto's mother. We've learned about her. We also get to see Makoto gaining a sister, so we get to see that information. Those are probably the main takeaways from the episode. I think that is the strongest points to pull into. The topics and the themes themselves are very heavy. I can't really say a great deal. So I do apologise if you're sat there going, Becca, you didn't really say anything. I found it a very interesting episode to watch. I enjoyed it. I think it's definitely interesting to see some of these themes starting to come back up. And it's definitely leading us somewhere, so I'm very interested to see where the anime is going. We are approaching the halfway mark for the season, so it's probably all going to start kicking off now anyway. So I expect to see more from this Kansai group. It wasn't like last week's episode where I felt like I could talk a lot more about the episode. This week's episode was difficult to talk about. Again, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. I will be releasing, as of next week, we are going to be doing something on all the videos. So I will have a anime question of the week where I plan to try making the channel more interactive. So each week we're going to have an anime question that I'll pose to you guys, the viewers. Doesn't matter what video you watch for that week. All of the episodes that week will have the same questions. The question will remain the same. I'll be asking you guys a question. You guys will comment below, hopefully, if you want. Comment below, answer the question, and I will be featuring the overall what I think is the best answer or a very enjoyable answer. So I'll feature an answer in the week after. So somebody will be picked from the comments and I'll be featuring them the week after. So that's how we're going to go ahead. I'm trying to make this channel more interactive, try getting things a bit more interesting for you guys as well. So it's not just you coming here watching a video once a week maybe. I want you guys to come here, get involved. That's why the channel has been given birth to. I've given birth to a Discord channel, which hopefully will become the basis, the platform for what's going forward. I hope you guys are staying safe, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy the new changes coming to the channel. Hopefully we head in a very good direction, a more interactive direction. I will see you guys next week, where hopefully I will be able to break down the anime better than I did this week. Have a good one, guys. Bye bye.